coming in and forcing their messages directly into the media because the population doesn't buy into their propaganda anymore. There has been a continuity of agenda. This has been going on for decades. They've been setting the system up. But now they're rolling it out, and that's the message here. What does it say about our society? This is unbelievable. This is the Fairness Doctrine 2.0. This is authoritarian censorship by way of government break-ins with announcements. No country's ever done this. This is beyond 1984, and it's really happening. Do people realize the magnitude of this? And in America, supposed land of freedom, I'm getting frantic calls from station owners and managers as they're being told to get ready for all of this to happen in the last few weeks, and going back 8 years ago, and going back 15 years ago. When I get these documents, as they put this system in place, the station owners are afraid to speak out. The station managers are afraid to speak out. Why? Why? We need to say no. This is a free market, free private property society. In the name of security, the government is hardwiring everything so they can take it over? Egypt, anybody? This is worse than what happened in Egypt. That's what Mubarak did. But he didn't have it hardwired. He physically had the army go take it over. This is as plain as the nose on my face. This is brazen, naked, hardcore, scary tyranny. And when I saw them announce this, even though I knew it was coming for all these years, it shook me to my very core, and it should shake you. When they put tyranny in place, they can take the pension funds, the veterans' death benefits, that's already begun. They can jack up taxes. They can shut down newspapers, TV, radio. The last time this happened was during the Civil War. Lincoln did similar things, arresting scores of newspaper owners and editors. This is here. The globalists have committed so many crimes. They know they're unpopular with the people. They know Congress has an 11% approval rating, and so they are moving with the system to force their propaganda onto all private media in this country. And it's going to start with little short announcements, and it's going to move until huge blocks of programming are openly taken over by the government. If we don't have free speech in the First Amendment and a free press in this country, we have nothing. The internet has been a wonderful tool to enlighten and inform and awaken the masses, but it's also a double-edged sword created by DARPA. Electronics, computer chips are so cheap, everything is being wired for the federal takeover. This is announced. This is a fact. We're entering a time when you're not going to be able to access INFOWARS.com and other alternative sites. We're already being blocked all over the world. They've already got the system in place, and that's scary enough. But if they send up this trial balloon and we go along with it, they are going to implement the full takeover of the media. Whether you're liberal, conservative, libertarian, communist, socialist, it doesn't matter. Atheist, Christian, all media is under attack. We must come together and resist this. We must say no to this. This is a major canary in the coal mine. This is a full spectrum takeover of the media. Let's not let them pull that switch. Get the word out to everybody. I have been having chills for 3 hours since this announcement came out. I knew the hammer was going to drop, but this is so incredible. We've got to hang together for the First Amendment, or we're surely going to hang separate. Thank you. The rest is up to you. Please spread the word. It is now time for radio and TV station owners to stand up to this corruption, to this police state takeover of the First Amendment and private property, and let the system know they are not going to put up with the federal government's takeover of our media system. Enough is enough.
All right, so that's Alex's detailed breakdown of the emergency alert systems. But again, this communication takeover could happen anytime. You could be walking around with your cell phone, so that's why DHS will cut in at any time with important messages from the Fuhrer president. But you could also be driving when an emergency happens. So we wanted to show you what it would look like in a real emergency situation takeover. We have some footage of that right now. Oh, actually, it's someone who hijacked one of those signs and demanded to impeach Obama. Now, there's a real emergency issue. Apparently, someone hacked into these traffic signs that display messages, road warnings to travelers in Anchorage sometime last Wednesday night, and they were not changed in the area until around 6 a.m., 8 a.m. the next morning. And that's a very interesting way to get an emergency message out. It's just part of the larger effort we've been trying to get people to spread the word about how Obama's become a dictator by using too much executive authority, and how other presidents who will succeed him, whether it's Romney or Bush III or whatever, will definitely keep using those powers and turn themselves into what we would only now recognize as a dictator if we were still grounded to the Constitution, to an ordinary government by the people, because this stuff has gotten out of control. Now, with that said, we've got liberty lovers upholding the First Amendment, phase 2 of the Stop Obama Dictator contest entries. We're going to show you a whole bunch of those entries when we go to break here in a couple minutes. They're great. They're going to keep rolling in, and we've extended the deadline to Friday, July 13th at midnight. So send your contest entries in, contest@infowars.com, but don't give up yet. We want to see the competition get worse and worse. No, we're not asking anyone to break any laws, but at the same time, the hour's late, and we really need to get the word out about this. Even more incredible probably should have been our breaking story: 60 days in prison and a $12,000 fine for hosting a Bible study in someone's home. Well, it happened in Phoenix. It's also happened across the country, by the way. Mike Salmon was found guilty of 67 code violations for having 15 to 20 people meet at his house, apparently on a regular basis, to read the Bible and discuss it and talk about religious things. Well, they're acting as if he's running a church without having the proper codes, without having the proper clearances, the proper city official documents. And yet Congress shall make no law regarding an establishment of religion or the practice thereof. People have a right to assemble for any reason, and somehow there's these code enforcements being implemented on the local, county, and city level. It's absurd. The Constitution applies top down in terms of the Bill of Rights. Yes, there's a separation of powers for the federal government, but the 14th Amendment has been applied to protect those Bill of Rights for everyone, and so it's not a two-way street. You have a right to freedom of religion, but they've circumvented that right by using code enforcement to shut down what really is a right into some kind of privilege. They don't care if you watch football games, have 10, 20, 50 people over. You can even have block parties in many cases in many official areas in little cities, but you can't have a backyard Bible study. And they say he just kept doing it, so he's going to jail for 2 months, and they're seeking 2.5 years of jail time because of his obstinance, because of his continuing to hold Bible studies in the face of these grave code violations. Well, it's all backwards. These codes are really shutting down independence of all kinds. They're shutting down people for growing gardens, shutting down people trying to get off the grids. That's in this article by Michael Snyder of The American Dream. They get into this whole thing of how codes are taking over our way of life, and it's really time to rein it in. If this doesn't hit home, if this isn't one of those first they came for the Christians, then they came for everybody, I don't know what is. I mean, it's just over the top. Now you can't basically read in your own home, not with more than 3 people, they say. A gathering of more than 3 people. It's hard to believe, but there it is. There it is on page. Meanwhile, in Maine, Governor LePage has called the IRS a new Gestapo. He's blasting the health care law and the IRS's role in implementing Obamacare, taxing and collecting fines for those who don't enroll properly, and uses these terrible terms like Gestapo. You can't talk about Nazis. You can't talk about how the American system's being degraded and we're becoming more and more of a collectivist society, just as the Nazis were one part and parcel of. No, you can't say that, says the Maine Democratic Party Chairman Ben Grant, who said, "We've come a long way and we've expected a bunch of nonsense from LePage, but this is a step too far. There appears now to be no limit to the extreme language he will use to misinform and insult people. He demands a full apology for daring to invoke the name of Gestapo because the real victims of the Gestapo. But let's not stop our own country from slowly fading away and really rapidly fading away into to a similar system. Well, the governor, LePage, did not take it lying down. He was put into office by all the Tea Party people and really has been against this health care thing for a long time. So how dare him speak against it when it's finally backed by the Supreme Court and basically shoved down our throats. The governor finished his radio address for outlining ideological opposition to health care law, which he said raised taxes, cuts Medicare for the elderly, gets between patients and doctors, costs trillions of taxpayer dollars, and kills jobs. Even more disheartening is that a reviving American dream just became nearly impossible to do. We are now a nation which supports dependency rather than independence, LePage said. Instead of encouraging self-reliance, we're encouraging people to rely on government. Oh, but that's extreme. You can't say Gestapo. Or is it? It was just last week, it was in the Daily Caller that the USDA wants to combat, quote, mountain pride and make sure they enroll more and more people on food stamps. Yes, they're literally going around to communities and encouraging people to get on the dole, to sign up for food stamps, explaining to people not already on the system that they need to sign up for food stamps, that they're eligible, and that they should get over the pride of thinking they don't want government to support them. And it's this whole mind shift from you try to live your own life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, you're basically free, you have a limited government to fight those external threats, blah, 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 war. Now it's the government in 2012 encroaching on all your life. They demand your health care be taken care of through the IRS system, that you be taxed for it, and that they ration your care, decide when and where you will get certain treatments, and you'll just be on the allopathic Rockefeller healthcare system anyway. And you got to be on food stamps now. You can't grow your own food. You can't try to make it as your own as a family, even if you don't have that much money. No, you need to be on food stamps too. And so they're paying their employees through the USDA and the people working with these programs to encourage a greater dependency on food stamps. What does that tell you about the system we're building? It's just incredible. You could call it communism, but it's a larger collectivism and happened under all these dictatorial systems, and they've really brought it here in America, as awful as that is. Meanwhile, the UN envoy admits international efforts to find a political situation in Syria have failed. Kofi Annan, the special UN envoy, who used to be the head of the UN and all these other systems, acknowledged in an interview published Saturday that the international community's efforts to find a political solution to the escalating violence in Syria have failed. So now there's no other choice but basically to initiate a war. Well, maybe it has a lot to do with the Syrian opposition rejecting the UN's transition deal last week. You get the Syria National Council, their spokeswoman, Basma Kodmani. She's the one who attended Bilderberg just back at the beginning of June, the end of May there, and she has rejected as a farce this transition deal, saying nothing can be done with Assad still in power. And sure, he's a bad guy, monster, but isn't the system they're using, bringing in Al-Qaeda and strong-armedly take over countries like one domino after another to get to their central enemies and create a wider war, isn't that more evil? Isn't it just a see-through farce that is always on the pretext of the wrongs Assad has done, but no one in the West can do anything wrong, even when they bring in those awful people? It's just a big joke, and here we have another step towards war, very predictably. They make it appear as if all the diplomatic things have been done. Those channels have been exhausted. No one can agree to a deal. This thing just won't work. And so now we have to look at what can be done to intervene, to save lives in Syria. They care so much about the little people, they just have to get that domino. I don't know what else to say. They've got another defection in the Syrian military. They're trying to say this is the biggest ever, and this is going to change the tide. And basically, it's all just a psyop to get Assad out of there and to psyop the public into expecting this intervention, thinking it's a good thing, even though they've done the same game plan over and over. Libya was not that long ago. We'll be back after this at the end of the break. We're going to see those great contest entries. We do need to stop dictator Obama. We need to get ready to stop dictator Romney, or